Goldman Sachs thinks now the Federal Reserve is gearing up for several interest rate cuts. It is predicting 3 cuts this year, each 0.25%. The brokerage pointing to weakness in the labor market and what it calls muted effects of President Donald Trump's tariffs.
So Goldman Sachs is now predicting at least 3 cuts within this year alone, each scheduled to be about 0.25%, dropping the federal funds rate from about 4.25 all the way down to possibly 3%. Now, keep in mind, the federal fund rate is not the same as interest rates, but they do have some correlations together. And that's a meaningful shift, not so much by the interest rate impact, but by the mindset. So this is now a different narrative. We're going to start hearing about the benefits of interest rate cuts and how that's supposed to help everyday buyers. But the question is it actually going to help most buyers?
In terms of folks' ability to actually buy into this market, one of the big things that we've seen over time is it seems that you need to be older and older and older to even have enough money to buy a first home. How much harder is that getting, and where do mortgage rates look like they have landed relative to these new prices?
Well, one of the most depressing statistics of last year was that the median age of a first-time buyer, 38 years old. We generally expect people to buy a home in their late 20s or early 30s so they can start that wealth-building process early. But to say that people are approaching age of 40 to buy a home because of affordability challenges. Now, regarding affordability, is really that the strong, dramatic increase in mortgage rate, going from 3%, 4%, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now it has settled down to about 6.5%, but still, mortgage rate is the reason why it's really hindering the affordability.
So we can start to see the narrative start to form, right? That home prices are high, and we forget. A lot of times we get bombarded with this negative news saying that home prices are down. There are only a few markets where home prices are actually down. We're actually up in almost every single state across the entire country. We see this picture being painted that interest rates are too high, and that's why homes are not affordable. So they're starting to paint that narrative of interest rate being the problem. And if we can get to that, we'll make housing more affordable. So we actually have a supply problem, and that supply problem won't be fixed. We're going to get to that later on in the video. But I want to share with you guys an international perspective. See, as Americans, we forget that most of the world has already been dropping their interest rates. Let's go ahead and look at Australia to see how their interest rates reductions impacted prices.
National house prices have now been rising consistently for 5 months, and they're not slowing down. In June, the rise was 0.6% for total growth over those 5 months of 2.9%. Now, it's that sort of growth rate over the past 25 years that got us into a housing affordability crisis, and it's still going. Now with the breeze of falling interest rates in its sails.
So there we saw an example of Australia reducing their interest rates, and what happened 6 months later? Well, prices went up. They had the same issues that we do. Housing affordability was way out of reach for too many people. And it only gets worse with lower interest rates. Interest rates is essentially infusing more money, giving borrowers much more ability to buy properties. And so as a result, prices go up. The same thing we saw with student loans, right? You give kids more access to capitals, and now the schools and colleges can just increase their tuition costs. Why? The education didn't get any better, but because you can borrow more money, I'm going to raise my prices. Same is true for housing. Giving people more access to cheap capital only increases prices, which may actually make housing more unaffordable for more people. And so the result is if you're waiting for interest rates to drop, you're also possibly waiting for prices to go up. So buy a property now with lower interest rates. And when prices go up over the next 3-4 years, you can always refinance if interest rates go even lower. But you want to buy and take advantage of today's opportunities. In today's market, the main opportunity that we have is taking advantage of our lower prices because they are set to go up. So we talked about interest rate predictions. Goldman Sachs says we're going to have 3 cuts in the next year. We also saw the media paint the picture as interest rates being the reason why housing is so unaffordable. And then we saw a video of what happened in Australia where after they dropped interest rates, they saw prices go up even faster. And so what we're saying is now is the right time to buy because prices are actually more affordable now than they will be in a few months. As we start seeing these interest rates kick in, we're going to see the mind shift change for a lot of buyers that had their capital sitting on the sidelines. And now I'm going to share the three major factors that are going to force prices to go up. So first is as interest rate drops, we're also going to see that there's going to be more demand for housing. That's a factor. But what it also leads to is a possibility of a lot more homeowners and investors refinancing, doing a cash out refi. And when you do a cash out refi, what you're trying to do is trying to lock in a lower rate. You're also trying to get equity out of that deal. So what's an investor going to do when they have more cash out of a deal? Well, they're going to look to redeploy that investment, possibly into lower interest rate properties. So you're going to start seeing investors who are pulling out money now be willing to buy. That's now going to create double the buying supply. According to a recent CBS News article, the average homeowner has over $300,000 worth of equity in their home. So if they were to do a cash out refinance, that's now tapping into a whole lot of money that they can now redeploy into buying more properties. Again, forcing more housing demand. The second is going to be the benefits of using bonus depreciation. So I did a video earlier this week. You can go ahead and watch it here to show that video. But we use a calculator that I created to show how much you can save on taxes using bonus depreciation. And again, I'll have the link in the bottom. You can go ahead and play with the calculator. But so for example, if you put in $100K, which would be 25% down payment on a $400,000 duplex, you can receive up to $500,000 in tax benefits using bonus depreciation. Now, obviously, there's some caveats there, but as a real estate professional like myself, I'm going ahead and maximizing my bonus depreciation, and it will offset my taxable earned income by $50,000, which means I will get a refund from the government by buying properties. So what is that going to force me to do? It's going to force me to go ahead and buy more property. I need to buy a property each and every year solely for the tax benefits. And a lot of investors, just like myself, are going to look to do the same thing. And one of the things that we've learned is that there used to be a sophisticated bracket of investors. Now information about the benefits of real estate is commoditized. It's all over the place. Your average homeowner now knows the benefits of owning real estate. That's why you're seeing a lot more smaller investors enter the real estate game. In fact, did you know that 25% of single family homes sold are being sold to small investors, just like you and me? And I did a whole video about that right there. So you can go ahead and click on it. Bonus depreciation will be another reason why more and more investors are going to be looking to buying more properties, which means demand for housing will go up. And the third point is you have to look at housing supply. It blows my mind that we spend all this time talking about pricing, talking about interest rate, and we don't talk about actual supply. I just gave you two reasons why demand is going to skyrocket. Interest rates, especially with cash out refis and with bonus depreciation. The third major component as to why prices are going to go up is because we have not been building enough properties. You can't have more people with more access to capital and the same number of housing. You're going to have a shortage of housing. If you look at the St. Louis Fed data, you can tell that since 2021, we've seen a sharp decline in permits being done. These are new houses that are being completed at a time period where we're kind of leveling off with pricing, where the demand for housing has been low. And prices have been pretty stable for the last 2 years. It's been relatively flat in most markets. Now we're going to get to the point where the inventory that we saw being built in 2021, well, it's going to be consumed. It's going to be absorbed. And here's the main picture, the main reason why I'm showing you this data, is we are not seeing another housing boom after this. What we're seeing is a current surge of inventory hit the market. And it won't be to another 3 or 4 years from now before builders start getting back on that horse and building more properties. We have been declining in permits since 2021. So right when we're entering a time period where demand is going to be higher than ever for housing, we're going to also hit a time period where supply will be lower than ever. And so what's the result of higher demand and lower supply? Well, it's higher prices, which means waiting for interest rate cuts is dumb. It's stupid. You should buy now, take advantage of the surge in pricing we're about to experience. And then when interest rates actually come in, go ahead and refinance then. but do not wait to buy real estate. Hey guys, thanks for watching the video all the way through to the end. Now I want to hear from you. Are you still sitting on your hands? You're ready to go ahead and take action and take advantage of the opportunities in today's market before prices go up. As always, please like and subscribe. Your comments mean the world to me, so leave them below. I'll be replying to each and every one of them. And if you have any suggestions for future videos, please let me know. Until then, I'll see you next time.